Who we are today is the sum total of all of the years of who we were. Would you agree?
Yes.
Well, you might be surprised at where I ended up now if you could have been there and seen me when I was a child. You can't even tie your shoes. You must be a baby. Only baby can't tie his shoes. And now you're thinking, oh, poor cute little Norman. Someone's saying those mean things to him. Well, you'd be partially correct. The cute little Norman part. Because that was me saying those awful words to my little sister, Mary. I don't know how many times I made her cry. I was a bully. Now, bullies become bullies for various reasons. For me, it was to fight off racism. I looked different than 99% of the kids in my school. I looked Japanese, and they didn't. My family lived in a predominantly white area of Orange County, California. And although it was several years after World War II, there was still quite a bit of prejudice going on. And some of the kids called me some of those derogatory names that people use to refer to the Japanese. I didn't feel like I fit in. I didn't know who I was. And I felt like crawling into a shell. And I might have crawled into a shell if not for another stereotype of the day. You see, back then, if you were Japanese, kids automatically thought that you knew this ancient fighting style called karate. In the second grade, some boys asked me, "So you know karate?" And I didn't. But I was just trying to be funny, so I did this. And they did this. It didn't take long for me to be known as Norman the Killing Machine. And I took full advantage of that because, well, those insensitive comments were just too painful. So I became a despicable bully. A bully because I only picked on those who were smaller or weaker than I was. And despicable because I even bullied when I didn't need to, like to little Mary. I was at the peak of bullyhood in the 6th grade, and there was James Ryan bouncing one of those red rubber balls at recess. Now, James was the kid who announced during class that he was going to grow up to become a physicist. A physicist. He would be the perfect target. I walk up to James and I give him the look. "Give me the ball, James." "You want it? Go get it." "You better get it, Four Eyes, or you're going to get it." James just stands there, looks at me as if to say, "Not today." What else could I do? I'd give him the push. I remember it quite clearly. It was a beautiful day. Not a cloud in the sky. And I could see the sky quite clearly from my vantage point, lying flat on my back. Turns out James didn't have to pretend he knew karate. He reaches down to help me up, and I start to cry in front of all my classmates. This time, I did crawl into a shell. Didn't talk to anyone, didn't want friends, didn't know who I was once again. Thankfully, I would find out who I was, thanks to Mary and our neighbor Fred. I come home from school and hear Mary watching TV in the family room, and you'll recognize the show. "It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor." She hears me coming. She gets up. She changes the channel to Looney Tunes. "Mary, I thought you were watching Mr. Rogers." And she forces a smile and looks at me and says, "Mr. Rogers is a baby show. I'm not a baby." But there was a look of fear in her eyes. The same look of fear that I saw in so many of my classmates who I bullied. And that look reminded me of how awful I was as a brother, as a classmate, as a person. Up to that point, I thought that the most painful thing in the world was James's foot to my solar plexus. But when I remember the look in those eyes, that still hurts to this day. I changed the channel back to Mr. Rogers. And I force a smile. I sit next to her and say, we'll watch Mr. Rogers together. And the smile that she gave me back, and the look in her eyes was one that I'd never seen before. And I liked it. And we watched Mr. Rogers for several afternoons. And he taught me many things. I thought he was talking directly to me when he said, there's only one you. But I knew he was talking directly to me when he said the worst thing that anyone can ever do is to make someone feel smaller than they think they are. Fred Rogers not only told me who I was, but maybe even who I was meant to be. But how could I become the person I want to be coming from the person I was? Could I go back and reverse the pain that I caused to so many? No. But consider this. The pearl in the body of an oyster starts with an irritant at the core. And year after year, the oyster repairs itself by laying down an iridescent protective layer on that core. And year and year and year after that, what we get is a beautiful pearl. What if I can hide my dark past in the center of my own pearl? After all, if we are the sum total of all the years leading up to who we are, and if we will ultimately be measured by the footprint that we leave behind, what if, year after year, I layer friendship on kindness, on compassion, upon respect, upon loyalty, upon selflessness, upon love, until ultimately my dark past is just the unseen of a beautiful life. I say it's never too late. Do you have a piece of history that you're not proud of? Lock it within your pearl. And together, we will make the world a more beautiful place. Because we all come from the same neighborhood. A neighborhood where we're all different, but we're all the same. And so as Mr. Rogers would ask, won't you be my neighbor?